I came home for our anniversary and found my son missing, left alone with my sister's ex. The restaurant's candlelight flickered across Marcus's face as he reached for my hand, his wedding ring catching the warm glow. 7 years. 7 years since we'd said, "I do," in that tiny chapel downtown, and here we were, finally stealing a moment for ourselves. Remember when we used to do this every Friday? Marcus smiled, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. Before Malik turned our quiet dinners into negotiations about bedtime stories and vegetable consumption. I laughed, feeling the familiar flutter in my chest that he still managed to give me after all these years. I love our chaos, though, even if it means we haven't had a proper date night in, 6 months? 8, Marcus corrected, signaling the waiter for another bottle of wine. But who's counting? The weight of being parents to an energetic 5-year-old had settled into our bones like a comfortable ache. We loved Malik with every fiber of our being, but tonight was ours. At least it was supposed to be. My phone buzzed against the table. A text from Jordan. "Everything's good here. Malik's being an angel. Take your time." I showed Marcus the message, and he nodded approvingly. "See? I told you Jordan would be fine. He's really trying to turn things around." I wanted to believe that. I really did. After the mess with my sister Tasha, the fights, the breakup, the drama that had torn through our family like a hurricane, Jordan had been making an effort. He'd gotten clean, found a job at a local garage, and even started going to therapy. When Tasha mentioned he was looking for ways to make amends, babysitting Malik seemed like a small gesture of trust. But something in my gut had twisted when I'd opened the door to him 3 hours earlier. Maybe it was the way his eyes had lingered on the family photos in our hallway, or how he'd asked too many questions about our evening plans. Or maybe it was just my overprotective mother instincts working overtime. "You're thinking too hard," Marcus said, squeezing my hand. I can practically hear the gears turning. I know. It's just Sarah." His voice was gentle but firm. "Malik is fine. Jordan is fine. And we deserve this." He lifted his wine glass. "To 7 years of putting up with each other's terrible habits. To 7 years of you leaving your socks on the bedroom floor," I countered, clinking my glass against his. The wine was smooth, the pasta was perfect, and for the first time in months, I felt like Sarah the woman instead of Sarah the mother. We talked about everything and nothing, his promotion at the engineering firm, my plans to finally finish my master's degree, the vacation we'd been promising ourselves for 2 years. Marcus paid the check with a flourish, and we walked to the car hand in hand, the October air crisp against our faces. The drive home was peaceful, filled with comfortable silence and the soft hum of the radio. I leaned against the headrest, watching the familiar streets blur past, feeling grateful for this simple moment of connection. "Thank you," I said as we turned onto our street. "For what?" "For making me feel like me again. Not just Malik's mom or your wife, but me." Marcus parked in our driveway and turned to face me, his expression tender. "You're always you, Sarah. That's why I fell in love with you in the first place." He was leaning in to kiss me when I noticed it, the front door. It was slightly ajar, golden light spilling out onto the porch like a beacon. My blood turned to ice. "Marcus," I whispered, pointing. He followed my gaze, and I watched his face transform from romantic to alert in seconds. We'd been together long enough that he knew my habits, knew that I triple-checked every lock, every window, every possible point of entry before we left. I would never, ever leave that door unlocked. "Stay here," he said, already reaching for his phone. Like hell. I was out of the car before he could protest, my heels clicking against the pavement as I rushed toward the house. The closer I got, the more wrong everything felt. The door wasn't just unlocked, it was open wide enough for someone to slip through. And the silence. God, the silence was deafening. "Malik," I called out, my voice echoing in the night air. "Malik, baby, where are you?" No answer. I pushed through the door, Marcus right behind me, and the living room light hit us like a slap. Everything looked normal at first glance. The couch cushions were still arranged the way I'd left them, Malik's toys were scattered across the floor in their usual chaos. But then I noticed the details that made my heart stop. The TV was on, but muted. Malik's favorite blanket, the one he never went to sleep without, was crumpled on the floor instead of tucked around him on the couch. And there, on the coffee table, was Jordan's phone. Face down. Screen dark. "Jordan," I screamed, running toward the hallway. "Jordan, where are you?" Marcus was already checking the kitchen, throwing open cabinets as if our 5-year-old might be hiding among the cereal boxes. I raced up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, my heart hammering against my ribs. Malik's room was empty. His bed was still made from this morning, his stuffed elephant sitting exactly where he'd left it. I tore through the closet, checked under the bed, even looked in the toy chest, places that made no logical sense, but desperation had a way of making you search everywhere. "Sarah?" Marcus's voice carried from downstairs, tight with panic. "Get down here." I flew down the stairs, my hands shaking so badly I had to grip the banister to keep from falling. Marcus was standing in the middle of the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, we need police," he was saying. "Our son is missing, and the babysitter is gone." Missing. The word hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. I sank onto the couch, my legs suddenly unable to support me. "Ma'am, can you describe what you found when you came home?" The 911 operator's voice was calm and professional through Marcus's phone speaker. I tried to speak, but no words came out. How do you describe the moment your world tilts off its axis? How do you explain that your child, your baby, was supposed to be safe in his own home, and now he's just gone? "The front door was open," Marcus was saying. "The babysitter's phone is here, but he's not answering. We've searched the whole house." "How old is your son?"
5.
"His name is Malik Washington. He's 5 years old, brown hair, brown eyes. He was wearing his dinosaur pajamas when we left." Dinosaur pajamas. The detail hit me like a knife to the chest. Those ridiculous green pajamas with a T-Rex on the front that he'd insisted on wearing even though it was barely evening when we left. He'd been so excited about his sleepover with Jordan, making elaborate plans for movie marathons and midnight snacks. "Officers are on their way," the operator said. "Don't touch anything else in the house. We'll need to process the scene." Process the scene. Like my home was now a crime scene. Like my son was now a case number. Marcus ended the call and immediately dialed another number. "Tasha, pick up. Pick up, pick up, pick up." Straight to voicemail. He tried again.
And again.
Each unanswered ring felt like another nail in my coffin. Where would he go? I finally managed to whisper. Jordan he wouldn't take Malik. He wouldn't. But even as I said the words, I knew they sounded hollow. Because the truth was, I didn't really know Jordan at all. I knew the version of him that Tasha had presented, the troubled but ultimately decent guy who'd made some bad choices. I knew the version who'd stood in my doorway 3 hours ago, clean-shaven and polite, promising to take good care of my son. But I didn't know the version who would leave his phone behind and disappear into the night with my child. The sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, growing closer with each passing second. Soon, our quiet suburban street would be flooded with flashing lights and urgent voices, all focused on the unthinkable reality that had become our life. I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last thing I'd said to Malik before we left. Had I told him I loved him? Had I kissed his forehead? The moments felt fuzzy now, overshadowed by the horror of what came after. "We'll find him," Marcus said, sitting beside me and pulling me close. "We'll find him, Sarah. I promise." But as the sirens grew louder and the reality of our situation began to sink in, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a nightmare that would change everything we thought we knew about trust, family, and the people we let into our lives. The police cars pulled into our driveway, their red and blue lights painting our house in colors that would haunt my dreams for years to come. And somewhere out there, in the vast darkness of the night, my little boy was alone with a man whose true intentions I was only beginning to understand. The officers swept through our house like ghosts in uniform, their flashlights cutting through shadows I'd never noticed before. "Detective Rivera," A woman with kind eyes and graying temples sat across from us at our kitchen table, the same table where Malik had eaten his dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets just this morning. "Mrs. Washington, I need you to walk me through everything again," she said gently, "from the moment you left the house." I repeated the story for the third time, my voice growing hoarse. Marcus held my hand under the table, his grip tight enough to leave marks. Each retelling made it feel more real and more impossible at the same time. "And Jordan Matthews, he's your sister's ex-boyfriend?"
Yes.
"They dated for about a year. Broke up maybe 6 months ago." I swallowed hard. "He's been trying to make amends. Tasha said he was doing better, going to therapy, staying clean." Detective Rivera made notes on her pad. "When was the last time you saw him before tonight?" "Maybe 2 weeks ago. He came by to return some of Tasha's things. He seemed normal. Quiet, but normal." What I didn't tell her was how his eyes had lingered on our family photos that day, how he'd asked casual questions about our routines. At the time, I'd thought he was just making conversation. Now, those innocent questions felt loaded with meaning I'd been too naive to recognize. "We can't reach your sister," Marcus said. "Her phone goes straight to voicemail. We've already sent officers to her apartment. No answer there either." Detective Rivera's expression remained neutral, but I caught the flicker of concern. "Mrs. Washington, I'm going to need you to do something difficult. I want you to go through the house one more time, slowly this time. Look for anything that's out of place, anything missing, anything that shouldn't be there." The idea of walking through my violated home again made my stomach churn, but I nodded. I needed to do something, anything, other than sit here, imagining where my son might be. Marcus started to follow me, but I held up my hand. "I need to do this alone." I began in the living room, forcing myself to really look this time instead of just panicking. Jordan's phone was still on the coffee table, but now I noticed something else, a slight indentation in the couch cushion where someone had been sitting. Not where Jordan should have been sitting if he'd been watching Malik. This was on the far end, angled toward the hallway, toward the photos. My breath caught as I moved to the hallway wall. Our gallery of family pictures lined the space. Malik's first steps, our wedding, holidays, birthdays. But there was a gap. A rectangular space where dust outlined the missing frame. My hands shook as I tried to remember which photo had been there. Then it hit me like a physical blow. It was the beach photo from last summer. The three of us laughing in the sand, Malik on Marcus's shoulders, my arms wrapped around both of them. It was candid, spontaneous, perfect in its imperfection. "Detective Rivera," I called out, my voice cracking. She appeared instantly, followed by Marcus and a younger officer I didn't recognize. "The photo," I whispered, pointing to the empty space. "He took our family photo." The detective studied the wall, then pulled out her phone to take pictures of the gap. "Which photo was it?" I described it, and I watched her expression grow more serious. "That suggests premeditation, Mrs. Washington. This wasn't spontaneous." The words hit me like ice water. Premeditation meant Jordan had planned this. While I was picking out my anniversary dress, while Marcus was making dinner reservations, while we were falling back in love over wine and candlelight, Jordan was planning to steal our son. "There's something else," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I led them to Malik's room, where I'd noticed something earlier but hadn't processed it in my panic. Malik's toy box, a painted wooden chest that usually sat against a far wall, had been moved. It was only a few inches, but I knew because there were indentations in the carpet where it normally sat. On top of the toy box was Jordan's jacket, black denim, worn at the elbows, smelling faintly of cigarettes and motor oil. He'd draped it there carefully, almost ceremonially. He wanted us to find it, I realized aloud. He wanted us to know it was him. Detective Rivera bagged the jacket while the other officer took photos. "Mrs. Washington, has Jordan ever shown unusual interest in you or your family? Any behavior that seemed inappropriate or concerning?" I started to shake my head, then stopped. "At Tasha's birthday party 2 months ago, he said something strange. He was a little drunk, and he told me I was lucky to have such a perfect little family. But the way he said it, I shivered, remembering. It didn't sound like a compliment. It sounded almost bitter. What else did he say? That some people get everything handed to them, while others have to fight for scraps. I thought he was talking about his job situation, his relationship with Tasha.
But now
I wondered if he'd been talking about something else entirely. About wanting what I had. About believing he deserved it more than I did. Marcus was pacing behind me, his hands clenched into fists. So what now? How do we find them? We've issued an Amber Alert, Detective Rivera said. Jordan's car description, license plate, Malik's information. It's all out there. We're checking traffic cameras, interviewing neighbors, tracking Jordan's phone. His phone is here, I pointed out. His personal phone, yes. But we're checking if he has any other devices, any other accounts we can trace. I sank onto Malik's bed, surrounded by his stuffed animals and superhero posters, breathing in the lingering scent of his bubble bath soap. This morning, this room had been filled with giggles and bedtime stories. Now it felt like a museum of my shattered life. Mrs. Washington? Detective Rivera's voice was gentle. Is there anything else? Any detail, no matter how small, that might help us understand Jordan's state of mind. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think past the terror. He always said Tasha didn't appreciate what she had, that she took things for granted. I opened my eyes, meeting the detective's gaze. What if he thinks I'm what she should have been? What if he thinks Malik is the son he should have had? The silence that followed was deafening, because we all knew that if Jordan had taken Malik to fulfill some twisted fantasy of the family he believed he deserved, we were running out of time to bring my son home safely. At 2:47 a.m., Tasha finally called back. Sarah? Oh my God. I just saw the missed calls. What's wrong? I could barely speak through my tears. Jordan took Malik. He's gone, Tasha. Our baby is gone. The line went dead silent for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then I heard it, a sharp intake of breath, followed by something that sounded like a sob. I'm coming over, she whispered. She arrived within 20 minutes, her hair disheveled, still wearing the scrubs from her nursing shift. Detective Rivera was still there, along with 2 other officers who'd been canvassing the neighborhood. Tasha's face crumpled the moment she saw the chaos in our living room, the evidence bags, the fingerprint powder, the reality that our family home had become a crime scene. Tell me everything, Detective Rivera said, guiding Tasha to the couch. And I mean everything about Jordan's behavior since your breakup. Tasha's hands shook as she accepted the coffee Marcus offered her. He didn't take the breakup well. I thought he was handling it better lately, but what, Tasha? I pressed, sitting beside her. What aren't you telling us? She looked at me with eyes full of guilt and something else. Fear. He never really let go, Sarah. Even after we broke up, he kept texting me, calling at weird hours. He'd drive by my apartment, show up at my work. Why didn't you tell us? Marcus demanded from across the room. Because he wasn't threatening. He was just sad. Pathetic, really. He kept saying I'd ruined his destiny, that we were supposed to be together forever. I felt sorry for him. Detective Rivera leaned forward. What about his behavior toward your sister specifically? Tasha's face went pale. About 3 months ago, he started asking about Sarah. Casual questions at first, how she was doing, if she was happy with Marcus, stuff about Malik. I thought he was just making conversation. My blood ran cold. What kind of questions about Malik? He wanted to know about his schedule, what school he'd go to, what he liked to do for fun. He said he was thinking about having kids someday and wanted to know what it was really like. Tasha's voice broke. I thought he was trying to grow up, to figure out what he wanted from life. What else? Detective Rivera's pen was moving rapidly across her notepad. He started comparing me to Sarah. Said I was too chaotic, too unstable. That Sarah was what I should aspire to be. Settled, responsible, a good mother. Tasha looked at me with tears streaming down her face. He said Sarah had the life he wanted. The perfect family, the nice house, the stability. I felt sick. You never thought to warn me? He never said anything threatening. Tasha protested. He just seemed lost. like he was trying to figure out how to be better. I thought he was using you as a role model, not as a target, Detective Rivera finished grimly. There's more, Tasha whispered, and my heart sank further. Last month, he started following Sarah on social media. He created fake accounts to see her posts. He'd screenshot pictures of your family and text them to me, asking questions about where they were taken, when they were taken. What kind of questions? Marcus asked, his voice deadly quiet. He wanted to know about your routines. When you worked, when you went grocery shopping. He knew Malik's daycare schedule, knew when you picked him up. He even knew about your anniversary dinner tonight. Tasha's voice was barely audible now. He asked me last week if you had a babysitter lined up. The room fell silent except for the ticking of our grandfather clock. Every tick felt like another second Malik was out there, alone and scared. Why didn't you tell us? I asked again, but this time my voice was hollow rather than angry. Because I already knew the answer. Because he's family, Tasha said, breaking down completely. He was my family and I thought I could fix him. I thought if I just gave him time, he'd move on. I never imagined he'd. She couldn't finish the sentence. Detective Rivera stood up. I need to see his messages. All of them. Social media, texts, emails, everything. While Tasha fumbled with her phone, Marcus pulled me aside. Sarah, there's something else. Something I didn't want to say in front of the police. My stomach dropped.
What?
2 weeks ago, when Jordan came by to return Tasha's stuff. I was in the garage, but I could hear you talking to him. He asked about our security system, remember? Said he was thinking about getting one for his apartment. I did remember. He'd been very interested in our setup, asking technical questions about the cameras, the motion sensors, the entry points. At the time, I'd been happy to help, thinking he was finally taking steps to improve his life. He was casing our house, I realized. He was planning this even then. Mrs. Washington, Detective Rivera called out. I need you to look at something. She held out Tasha's phone, showing me a series of text messages from Jordan. They were from the past 2 weeks, and they made my blood run cold. Sarah looked tired at pickup today. She works too hard. Malik was wearing his dinosaur shirt again. Kid has good taste. Anniversary dinner reservations for 7? She deserves a nice night out. Some people don't know how good they have it. She'd be happier with someone who really understood her worth. The messages painted a picture of systematic stalking, of a man who'd been watching my family with obsessive attention to detail. He knew our routines, our preferences, our vulnerabilities. He'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. He's been watching us, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He knows everything about us. But it was the final message, sent just 3 hours ago, that made my legs give out completely. Taking care of what should have been mine all along. Don't wait up. Jordan hadn't just taken my son on impulse. He'd stolen him as part of a carefully orchestrated plan to claim the family he believed belonged to him. And somewhere out there in the darkness, my 5-year-old boy was trapped in the middle of a madman's delusion. By dawn, our house had become a command center. FBI agents had joined the local police, their serious faces and quiet efficiency making everything feel more real and more terrifying. Agent Chen, a specialist in child abduction cases, spread Jordan's life across our dining room table like pieces of a puzzle we desperately needed to solve. The good news, she said, is that everything we're seeing suggests Jordan wants to preserve his fantasy, not destroy it. He's not going to hurt Malik, at least not intentionally. He needs him whole and happy to maintain his delusion. The words should have been comforting, but they felt hollow in my chest. My son was still gone, still scared, still calling for his mommy, while trapped with a man who lived in a world that didn't exist. We need to think like Jordan, Agent Chen continued. Where would he take Malik to Playhouse? Somewhere he'd feel safe, somewhere he could control the environment. Tasha had been chain-smoking on our back porch since 4 a.m., her guilt eating her alive. Now she stubbed out another cigarette and joined us at the table. There might be something, she said quietly. After we broke up, Jordan mentioned he'd been renting places short-term. Said traditional leases were too confining for where his life was headed. What kind of places? Agent Chen asked. Airbnb's vacation rentals. He liked the idea of being temporary, said it gave him options. Tasha's hands shook as she pulled out her phone. He posted about it on Facebook a few months ago. Something about freedom to reinvent yourself wherever you land. Detective Rivera was already on her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. We're checking all rental platforms in a 200-mile radius. It'll take time to cross-reference credit cards and fake names, but... Wait, I interrupted, a memory surfacing like a life preserver. He wouldn't use his real name or credit card, but he'd need something that felt meaningful to him, something that fit his fantasy. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to think like the man who'd stolen my child. Jordan wasn't random in his obsessions. Everything had significance in his twisted narrative. Sarah Matthews, I said suddenly. He'd use my first name with his last name. Like, we were married. Agent Chen immediately got on her radio while Detective Rivera refined her search parameters. Within minutes, they had something. Got it, Detective Rivera announced. A cabin rental in Millbrook, 2 hours north. Booked under Sarah Matthews, paid for with a prepaid credit card purchased 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. He'd been planning this for 3 weeks, maybe longer. While I was living my normal life, taking Malik to soccer practice, planning our anniversary dinner, trusting my sister's judgment, Jordan had been methodically preparing to steal our lives. But that's not all, Tasha said, her voice trembling. There are journals. In my attic. Jordan left a box of his stuff when we broke up, said he'd come back for it. I never looked inside, but Agent Chen was already dispatching officers to Tasha's apartment. What else might be in that box? I don't know. Personal stuff, I guess. Notebooks, maybe some photos. Tasha looked at me with haunted eyes. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I should have looked. I should have known. The waiting was agony. Every minute that passed was another minute Malik was alone with Jordan, another minute he was calling for me, and I couldn't answer. I found myself pacing the living room, past the spot where Jordan's phone still sat in an evidence bag, past the empty space on the wall where our family photo used to hang. Marcus tried to get me to eat something, but the thought of food made me nauseous. How could I eat when my baby might be hungry? How could I rest when he was probably lying awake, wondering why Mommy and Daddy hadn't come for him yet? My phone rang, and I nearly jumped out of my skin. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Agent Chen said quickly, moving toward me with recording equipment. If it's Jordan, we need to trace it. But something in my mother's intuition told me to pick up. Hello. Silence. Then, faintly, I heard it, a sound that made my knees buckle. Mommy? Malik's voice, small and scared, and so far away. Baby. Malik, are you okay? Where are you? I want to come home, he whispered, and I could hear tears in his voice. Jordan says we're having an adventure, but I want you and Daddy. I know, sweetheart. I know. We're coming to get you, okay? Just. The phone went dead. I collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Agent Chen was already coordinating with a tech team to trace the call, but I knew it wouldn't be enough. Jordan was too smart, too careful. He'd given me just enough to torture me with hope before taking it away again. But he'd made a mistake. A crucial one. He let Malik call me. I said through my tears. He's losing control of his fantasy. If he really believed he was Malik's father now, he wouldn't have allowed that call. Agent Chen nodded grimly. Which means he's getting desperate. And desperate people make more mistakes. 2 hours later, the officers returned from Tasha's apartment with Jordan's box. Inside, they found his journals, pages and pages of handwritten obsession that painted a picture of a man completely detached from reality. There were drawings of my family, with Jordan inserted in Marcus's place. Fake wedding invitations with our names. A detailed timeline of our daily routines going back months. And most chilling of all, pages labeled future plans that outlined how he would fix our family, how he would be the father Malik really needed. But buried in the madness, Agent Chen found something else. References to the perfect place and where we first knew we belonged. Cross-referenced with a cabin rental and Jordan's social media history, it painted a clear picture of where he'd taken my son. The cabin in Millbrook wasn't random. According to his journals, it was where he'd taken Tasha for their first weekend away, the place he decided they were meant to be together forever. Now he was trying to recreate that perfect moment with a family he believed should have been his all along. "We found him," Agent Chin announced, and for the first time in 12 hours, I could breathe again. But as the FBI tactical team prepared to move out, I knew the real nightmare was just beginning. Because somewhere in that remote cabin, my 5-year-old son was living in the middle of a madman's delusion, and there was no telling what Jordan might do when his fantasy finally came crashing down. "Absolutely not," Agent Chin said for the third time. "Mrs. Washington, you are not going anywhere near that cabin. He's my son." I stood in our driveway at 6 a.m., watching tactical officers load equipment into black SUVs. "I need to be there when you bring him out. And we need you safe. Jordan's mental state is deteriorating. If he sees you, there's no telling how he might react." But I was already walking toward Marcus's car, keys in hand. "Then you better hurry, because I'm going with or without you." Agent Chin caught my arm. "Sarah, listen to me. If Jordan feels cornered, if his fantasy breaks down too quickly, he could hurt Malik. Our best chance is a controlled approach." "Your best chance is me," I said, pulling free. "He took Malik because he wants me. If I'm there, he'll focus on me instead of hurting my son." The argument might have continued, but Detective Rivera's radio crackled to life. "We've got movement at the cabin. Subject is awake, appears to be preparing breakfast." Breakfast. The normalcy of it made me sick. While I'd been awake all night, drowning in terror, Jordan had been playing house with my stolen child. Agent Chin made a decision. "You can come, but you stay in the command vehicle. One word from me, and you're out of there." "Understood." I nodded, though we both knew if it came down to my son's safety, I'd break every promise I'd ever made. The drive to Millbrook felt endless. 2 hours of winding mountain roads, of imagining every possible scenario, of praying to a God I wasn't sure was listening anymore. Marcus held my hand the entire way, both of us lost in our own private hells. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel road, surrounded by dense pine trees that blocked out most of the morning light. It looked like something from a postcard: rustic wooden walls, a wraparound porch, smoke curling from the chimney. Under any other circumstances, it would have been beautiful. Now it looked like a prison. Thermal imaging shows 2 figures inside, Agent Chin reported from the command vehicle. 1 adult, 1 child, in what appears to be the main living area. Through high-powered binoculars, I could see movement through the cabin's front window. My heart stopped when I spotted a flash of green, Malik's dinosaur pajamas. He was alive. He was moving around. It wasn't enough, but it was something. "Subject is at the window," came the report from a sniper positioned in the trees. He's showing the child something outside, pointing at the mountains. I grabbed the binoculars from Agent Chen's hands before she could stop me. Through the lens, I could see Jordan's profile, and beyond him, Malik's small face pressed against the glass. Even from this distance, I could see my son was crying. "I can't wait anymore," I said, reaching for the door handle. "Mrs. Washington, look at him. He's terrified." I was already climbing out of the vehicle. "I'm going up there." "Sarah, no." Marcus grabbed for me, but I was already running. I made it maybe 50 yards before Agent Chen's team caught up with me, but it was far enough. Far enough for Jordan to see me through the window. Far enough for our eyes to meet across the distance. Far enough for everything to change. Jordan's face lit up like Christmas morning. He said something to Malik, pointing at me, and I watched my son's head whip around to look in my direction. Even from here, I could see him start to struggle, trying to get to the window, trying to get to me.
My phone rang.
"Jordan." "Sarah," Agent Chin warned, but I was already answering. "Hello, Jordan. You came." His voice was soft, almost wondering. "I knew you would. I knew you'd understand." "Understand what, Jordan?" "That this is how it was always supposed to be. The 3 of us. A real family." I forced myself to stay calm, to speak in the gentle tone I used when Malik had nightmares. "Jordan, I need you to let Malik come outside. He's scared. He's not scared. He's adjusting. Kids are resilient. They adapt when they're given stability. I'm giving him what Marcus never could. What's that? A father who truly appreciates what he has, who knows how precious this gift is. Jordan's voice grew more excited. I've been taking care of him, Sarah. We made pancakes this morning, dinosaur shapes, just like he likes. We watched cartoons. I read him 3 bedtime stories last night. The details were knives in my chest. Those were my moments he was stealing. Malik's dinosaur pancakes were our Saturday tradition. The 3 bedtime stories were our nightly ritual. That's wonderful, Jordan. You're being very kind to him. I caught Agent Chen's eye and nodded. Keep him talking. But he misses his toys. His bed. Maybe we could bring some of his things up here? We don't need his old things. I bought him new toys, better toys. Everything here is better, Sarah. Cleaner. More peaceful. No rushing around, no stress, no taking each other for granted. Through the binoculars, I watched Jordan move away from the window, gesturing excitedly as he talked. But Malik stayed pressed against the glass, his small hands flat against it like he was trying to push through. Jordan, I'd like to see what you've done with the place. Can I come up to the cabin? Really? The hope in his voice was heartbreaking and terrifying. You want to see our home? Our home. The delusion was complete.
Yes.
I want to see how you've been taking care of Malik. But I need you to let him come outside first, so I know he's okay. He's perfect, Sarah. We're perfect. Just give me a minute to explain everything to him, to help him understand why this is better. The line went dead, and I watched through the binoculars as Jordan knelt down beside my son. He was talking earnestly, his hands on Malik's shoulders, and I could see my baby shaking his head, trying to pull away. Then Jordan stood up, and I saw something that made my blood freeze.
He was holding rope.
Move in now, Agent Chen ordered into her radio. Subject is attempting to restrain the child. But I was already running again, this time with purpose. Because no tactical team, no matter how well trained, loved my son the way I did. And if Jordan's fantasy was about to shatter, I needed to be there to protect Malik from the pieces. I reached the cabin's porch just as the front door opened. Jordan stood there, Malik in his arms, my son's small hands bound with the rope I'd seen through the binoculars. But it wasn't harsh. Jordan had wrapped it gently, almost ceremonially, like he was tying a present. Sarah. Jordan's face was radiant, like he was seeing a vision. You're here. You're really here. Hi, Jordan. I kept my voice calm, even though every instinct screamed at me to rip my child from his arms. Hi, baby, I said to Malik, whose eyes were red from crying but who tried to smile for me. Mommy, he whispered, and the word broke my heart. I know, sweetheart. I'm here now. Jordan stepped back, gesturing for me to enter. Come see what I've done. Come see our home. The cabin's interior made my stomach lurch. It was like walking into a funhouse mirror version of our real life. Jordan had covered the walls with printed photos, pictures of me and Malik that he'd stolen from social media, but he'd photoshopped himself into Marcus's place in every single one. Our wedding photo now showed me kissing Jordan. Our family beach picture featured Jordan carrying Malik on his shoulders. Fake birthday cards were scattered on the coffee table, all addressed to Daddy in what looked like forged versions of Malik's handwriting. A makeshift child's art display covered one wall, drawings that Jordan had clearly done himself, signing Malik's name in crayon underneath stick figures labeled Mommy, Daddy, and me. Do you see? Jordan's voice was breathless with excitement. Do you see how perfect it is? How right? It's very detailed. I managed, moving slowly toward where he held Malik. I've been planning this for so long, Sarah. Every detail, every moment. I know what kind of coffee you drink in the morning. I know Malik likes his toast cut into triangles. I know you sing "You Are My Sunshine" when he can't sleep. The specificity was terrifying. He'd been watching us, learning us, stealing our most intimate family moments and weaving them into his delusion. Jordan, I said carefully, can you untie Malik? The rope looks uncomfortable. Oh, this isn't to hurt him. Jordan said quickly, looking down at my son with genuine affection. He was trying to run outside earlier. I just wanted to keep him safe until you got here to explain that he doesn't need to be afraid anymore. I could see tactical officers moving through the trees outside the windows, getting into position, but I needed to keep Jordan calm until they were ready. Of course he's afraid, I said. This is all new to him. Maybe if you untied him, he could see that we're safe here. Jordan considered this, then gently began working at the knots. The moment Malik's hands were free, he lunged toward me, and I caught him in my arms, his small body shaking against mine. It's okay, I whispered into his hair. Mommy's here. But Jordan's face was changing, the radiant joy flickering into something darker. He shouldn't be afraid of me, he said, his voice taking on an edge. I've been nothing but good to him. I've given him everything. You have, I agreed quickly. You've taken wonderful care of him. But Jordan, we need to talk about what happens next. Next? Jordan looked confused, like the concept of a future beyond this moment hadn't occurred to him. About how we're going to make this work. About Marcus. About the police who are looking for us. Marcus doesn't matter, Jordan said firmly. The police don't matter. This is our life now. Our real life. Through the window, I could see Agent Chen signaling. 30 seconds. But Malik needs his school, his friends. We can't just disappear. We can. We can be anyone we want here. We can start over, be the family we were always meant to be. Jordan moved closer, his eyes bright with manic certainty. Don't you see? This isn't kidnapping, Sarah. This is rescue. I'm rescuing you from a life that was never really yours. Rescue me from what? From settling. From accepting less than you deserve. Marcus doesn't see the way I do. He doesn't understand your worth. I held Malik tighter, his small arms wrapped around my neck. And you do. I've studied you, Sarah. I know every expression, every gesture. I know you deserve someone who worships you, who understands that you and Malik are precious gifts that should never be taken for granted. 20 seconds. Jordan, I said softly, what if I told you that the best way to show you love me is to let me choose? Choose what? Choose to be here. Choose this life. But I can only choose if I'm free to choose. Do you understand? Confusion flickered across his face. In his delusion, he'd never considered that love might require freedom, that a family couldn't be stolen, only given. 10 seconds. I want to choose you. I lied, hating myself for the hope that bloomed in his eyes. But first, I need to know that Malik is safe. That we're all safe. We are safe, Jordan said, reaching toward me. Where finally, the door exploded inward. FBI, get down. Jordan spun toward the sound, his face cycling through confusion, betrayal, and rage in seconds. But instead of fighting, instead of the violence I'd feared, he just stood there looking at me with heartbroken eyes. You brought them, he whispered. After everything I did for you, after everything I sacrificed. Jordan, please. But he was already raising his hands, surrendering to the tactical officers who surrounded him. As they zip-tied his wrists, he looked at me one last time with something that might have been pity. You'll never be this happy again, he said. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering what could have been. Then he was gone, led away in handcuffs, still believing his version of reality, even as it crumbled around him. 3 months later, after the trial, after the therapy sessions, after the security system installation and the move to a new house, I tucked Malik into his bed and sang, You Are My Sunshine, like I had every night before Jordan tried to steal our song. Mommy? Malik's voice was small in the darkness. Yes, baby? Are you happy? I kissed his forehead, breathing in the scent of his bubble bath soap, listening to Marcus's footsteps on the stairs as he came to say goodnight. I'm home, I told my son, and that's all the happiness I need. Because Jordan had been wrong about everything, except one thing. I did deserve someone who understood my worth. I had that someone. I'd always had that someone. And no one would ever steal that from us again.